Well, thank you everyone for chiming in to our Winning with Automation session here for our FinOps Excellence Summit. My name is Ryan Strobel. I'm a global director of our field specialists here at Harness, and I'm joined by Kyler and Noe. Would you mind introducing yourselves?
Yeah, I'm Noe Zuniga. I'm an executive director at JP Morgan Chase and a FinOps practitioner.
Yeah, my name is Kyler Roop. I'm a cloud FinOps engineer at Coke. I primarily am the lead technical resource for our team that helps work with our individual business units on how to tackle FinOps at scale.
Awesome. And just for context for those watching, how long have you all been in the FinOps space?
About 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, for me, about 2 years. I was previously in the DevOps space, which transitions, I think, pretty well into the FinOps space. But yeah, overall, fully focused on FinOps about 2 years.
That's great. I mean, FinOps hasn't been around that long, so 2 or 5 years is a large part of time. So let's get right into it. The topic of discussion for today is how are we winning with automation? How do we leverage automation inside of FinOps practices to drive the best results for your businesses? So let's start off with an easy question, right? Where do you start when it comes to applying automation in a FinOps context? Kyle, you mind kick us off?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd say first thing is visibility. Getting visibility onto what your spend is, whether it's public cloud, on-prem, SaaS, is a heavy focus on before you can make any kind of data-driven decision. First, you need to understand where are we spending our monies, what are our KPIs, what are we planning on tackling, before you can really go in and start tackling things with automation. So figuring out how you're going to get visibility on those, maybe building some automation to get visibility on those kinds of things is really important before you make any actual decisions on what you're going to tackle with automation.
That's great. Noe?
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Sabad. And that's really the foundation of getting started and understanding what's driving your cost and being able to pinpoint what needs to be addressed, or at least highlight, is there an opportunity here to investigate to reduce those costs? And the second piece would be, I would say, downscaling. Implement some level of downscaling your resources, or stop starting your resources from non-business hours, those types of situations, because you can get a huge amount of savings by downscaling instances that are not in use. And that's certainly an easy way to eliminate waste and cost avoidance.
Okay, so what I heard was start with visibility, right? Fundamental FinOps principle is start with visibility, both in automation as well as just your general FinOps practices. And then as you mature through automating that basic level of visibility, start looking at where you can right size, where you can downscale, where can you find those low-hanging fruits to garnish.
That's right.
Okay, great. So within your own organizations, you've each implemented a certain level of automation. What kind of savings or efficiencies are you looking for when you adapt these types of automation practices?
Yeah, no, I'd say it really kind of varies. So after you get the whole visibility aspect of, okay, so now we have insight, we'll just take public cloud, for instance, into where our spend is for maybe our different services that we're leveraging, then you can start having kind of a game plan on how we're going to be tackling those things. So are we really compute heavy? Are we storage? Do we have a ton of unused storage that we can look at implementing optimization for? So I would say once you find those things, then you start tackling the actual optimization, cleaning up unused storage. Like Noe was mentioning, downsizing some of your resources to lower your compute costs. That's how you can start really kind of creating those efficiencies and start proving out, okay, so first we take the concept of FinOps, which is, the operational framework on how we're going to tackle this. Now you start actually going and tackling those things. So now you start to build a reputation within your organization that not only do you have a good understanding of what we're going to tackle, but also how we're going to tackle it.
That's great. And in your own organization, are there certain results that you've seen that you're able to share in terms of the benefits of automation that you've seen?
Yeah, so I'd say they're probably holistically with any organization. Like I was kind of mentioning, compute. The more compute, the larger servers that you're leveraging, the cost is obviously going to be higher, right? So downsizing those, equate to lower compute costs. Storage, if you have snapshots that are over a specific age that are, unless you're keeping them for compliance sake, are really just kind of collecting dust. So as you're kind of going and tackling those efficiencies or those inefficiencies, I think that kind of carries over pretty well. So it doesn't really matter what organization you are. If once you identify your key services that your spend is at, by tackling those, you should cleaning up unused resources, downscaling, those kinds of things. So
Yeah, that's great. And Noe, are there specific things that you guys have seen at JPMC?
So I think the fundamental thing you can actually see savings in for any given, for most companies, I would say, is just downscaling during non-business hours, like I mentioned earlier, which is what can equate to about 70% of savings. If those instances are lying around and no one's actually doing development, now maybe I'm kind of thinking that most people are going home every day at 8 and they're only working 9 to 5, but there are going to be those exceptions. There's going to be people that are passionate and continuing to work after hours, but for the majority of the time, you can start off with having a schedule where things are shut down after hours and shut down completely on the weekends. But make it easy for teams to be able to restart those instances. That's the key part too, is that implement automation, even at starting slow, maybe without a schedule. Coordinate, work with the teams that are the development teams to make sure that these schedules are going to work for them. It may not work comfortably or work for everyone. It's not a one size fits all, but setting up at least non-business hours can get you at least a 70% savings in costs on your at least your runtime compute.
And 70% savings sounds like a really great promise and opportunity for businesses anywhere, right? Is that realistic for FinOps organizations?
Well, I would say, I think for the most part it can be, but I think you would have to take the next iteration and have some sort of automated detection of usage. Mm-hmm. Having something that detects usage and shuts it down, or a request coming in that automatically starts up the instances, is the real key, where you still coordinate with the teams and let them know what's happening so they can cope with those situations. But that's where the real savings is. Not only do you get the benefit of the times that you expect teams to be working throughout the day, they may not actually be utilizing the services throughout the day, mm-hmm. and you get the benefits of shutting them down during the business hours as well. Of course, I'm talking to a non-prod environment. Prod environments are an exception. We're only talking about non-prod.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree absolutely. I'd say for some things you're tackling, 70% plus is a realistic. We'll just take, for instance, an AWS feature that allows you to archive snapshots. So having a snapshot out there, by archiving it, it will actually save you 75% by archiving it. So depending on what the pricing models are for the different services, there are always those opportunities to have really high savings or cost avoidance. You really just have to understand what are the services, what are the cost options that are available. I mean, if you look at, there are different classes for maybe like log groups and things like that you can transition into. So it's really just having a good understanding of what are our high spend services, and then what are all the payment classes that we could experiment with to really understand what fits our situation. So yeah, I'd say 70% savings for different services is an option.
Okay. Yeah. As we think about tracking, right? Everything in FinOps is about not only visibility, but also tracking the results of the fruits of our labors, if you will. So when you think about automation in your FinOps practices, how are you thinking about tracking the specific impact of automation initiatives versus other initiatives that your teams might be undertaking?
Yeah, I mean, I would say there's a couple different ways on how you can track that. Obviously, the one that sticks out the most is dollar signs. What is our actual cost avoidance? How much are we saving versus what we would be spending otherwise? Which is always a very difficult thing to do. You can kind of retroactively look at my bill. Hey, I made all these cost optimization initiatives. What is our spend this month versus this month, right? So that's one way to tackle it. You can kind of get a little bit preemptive and have like kind of more of an estimate model. But I also think that there's another aspect where you're creating value that doesn't necessarily equate to dollar signs, right? So, and what I kind of mean by that is building up a reputation within your organization that you are effectively tackling these. And when you work with these different teams who have been in the industry for multiple years, these cloud platform teams, these cloud champions, they want to know that you're not only kind of coming in and trying to just cut down their infrastructure costs without taking any consideration into how their applications are running, right? You can't just go in there and we're like, yeah, we're just going to downside all these. And if your latency jumps up going forward, then who cares, because we're saving $1, right? You really have to build that relationship with those teams to where that they trust that you're coming in, and yes, you are making a cost optimized decision, but you're also making an efficiency in the application decision as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's the same thing. We like to try to foster the well-architected framework from AWS. Cost optimization is one of the key pillars of that. And so working with the team, explaining to them that this is one of the main key drivers of a well-architected framework will help them understand that cost efficiency should be a first-class citizen, and we're helping the teams develop quality software, make it efficient, and at the same time also try not to implement or try to impact their service level objectives that they may have in place. So direct cost savings, downscaling, cost avoidance, misconfiguration, anomaly detections, all this plays a key role in building a trust and showing the value of the work that we're doing as a team.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And as we think about, I think cost avoidance, cost optimization is naturally priorities 1, 2, and 3 oftentimes of FinOps organizations. But like you guys mentioned, the trust is hugely important to the success and likelihood of success of any given organization. I want to ask you one more question on this ROI topic, which is cost benefits, cost avoidance is obviously important. What about productivity? Because I'd imagine that your teams are able to have a far broader impact with a fewer number of folks in your organizations. Have you seen that? Is that real?
Yeah, so I would say, and this is why automation I think really kind of plays into this. It kind of gives your team like a superhuman aspect to it, because I would imagine most FinOps teams don't have 50 individuals that are dedicated to going and tackling cost optimization across their different business units, right? So that's why I think automation can really help your team tackle cost optimization at scale, even if you only have a couple individuals. So say that you have 10 different business units and you have built some automation that can go and clean up storage or right-size resources appropriately. Now that you've built that out, you can go to the other 9 business units and say, hey, you leverage that story of a success to those other 9 business units and encourage them to adopt that. And now you can easily implement it because you've already built out the automation for it.
You seen something similar?
Yeah, very, very similar to that as well. Is like also utilizing some of the showback reports or the cost allocation. We're able to also look at implementing reports to provide evidence and show and demonstrate oversizing, over provisioning, orphaned or abandoned things that are out there running. So also, depending on the size of an organization, utilizing FinOps champions to help become that mediator, that bridge between the cost FinOps activities that are going on with the development activities, and help coordinate activities in regards to taking action, because as we all know, taking action is the biggest thing that we always have a problem when it comes to implementing change or downscaling or deleting abandoned or orphaned instances. So there's much automation you can do in regards to the reports that you're getting from cost allocation. It's a huge success to help relieve that burden from the engineers and developers.
So it sounds like the recipe for success is a FinOps team that understands where and how to apply the automation, the actual automation capability to show visibility, to identify places for downsizing. And then you both mentioned FinOps champions outside of the FinOps team, among the application teams and developers who can actually be partners with you alongside your journey, so that you're not the ones who are actually implementing every single recommendation amongst the estate. Is that fair?
Yeah, I would say it's very important, because especially if you have like a larger enterprise, you're not going to understand what each individual group is, what they're leveraging their applications for. They're going to understand them the best. So if you really want to tackle things quickly, not only do you need good coordination between you and your maybe FinOps counterparts in other sides of your organization, but also where their communication can reach those kinds of end users that are have the best understanding of their infrastructure. Why is it architected that way? So that way that we can all collectively make the decision, does this make sense for your situation?
Okay, great. Question on this is, I think a lot of this sounds fairly straightforward, right? But we all know that FinOps is anything but, because there's a human element, there's a political element, there's an interpersonal dynamic that ultimately can mean success or failure of a FinOps program. And I've seen trust as a critical element towards it swinging one way or another. So what advice would you have for the audience around how do you build trust amongst finance stakeholders, FinOps stakeholders, engineering stakeholders, and anybody else that might be involved in this decision-making process? Because like you both alluded to, it's not as simple as a technological decision or an optimization problem.
Yeah, I would say communication's key. Communication is so important to not just look at opportunity, but how to tackle opportunity. Like I was just kind of mentioning, those end users that have architected things in a very specific way are going to know the best about why their infrastructure or why their applications are architected that way. So you can't just run these huge reports of, hey, here's a bunch of optimization opportunity, and then just go and right size all these resources. You're just going to break a lot of things. So really connecting with those teams will, one, allow you not to kind of retroactively go fix a lot of things, but will also ensure that those end users you're starting to build that relationship. They're really starting to trust you because you're not just looking for dollar savings. You want things to run appropriately, but you also want them to run efficiently. So I would say that communication is key in how to tackle not just things on a small scale, but how to tackle things on a large scale.
Yeah, completely agree. Make it part of a team. Make it a team effort. Make them part of the solution. Make sure that they get credit. Everyone gets credit for the work as an initiative. Communication's key. Make sure they understand. Make sure that they understand the process, what's being implemented, so that they feel safe that there's not going to be any business impact. Because it's the key thing is that at the end of the day, no one wants to impact the business. By no means. We don't want to potentially impact service level objectives. We're here to help everything be efficient. So make them part of the team, collaborate with them, ask them for suggestions, what are the best things to do, ask for recommendations, just make them part of the process so that they feel compelled as this is a solution that they also participate in.
Are there any specific things that either of you have done throughout your careers that has really resonated with these types of folks? Because as everybody knows, developers are getting hit up left and right with every organization, every business unit trying to garner their attention because they're such a valuable resource. Are there things that you've realized that really work?
Yes. Education, really. Education and firsthand experience comes a long way. And so I think we've all experienced the cases where we've accidentally spent too much money or didn't realize we're spending too much money. And so one of the things that I've always mentioned to the teams and when I'm communicating with engineers is that this is a new this may be new, but it's a learning experience, and this is something that they can use for the rest of their lives. And cost wasn't something that I had ever learned. Well, how was it to be a software engineer in school or anything like from that perspective? And so for them, I think I tell them that this is something that may not be new. It may be new, but it's something that they're going to continue to learn and use this as something they can use for the rest of their career.
So there's something in it for them at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'd say bring them along for the ride. Nobody enjoys a top-down initiative, and being able to bring them along for the ride of optimizing their spend helps them equate to why maybe the decision was made, how we can all work together to kind of optimize our infrastructure. So that's, I would say, key for me is how you help connect other teams to what you're trying to accomplish is just bring them along.
Great. All right. This wouldn't be a panel discussion in the year 2025 if we did not talk about AI. So let's wrap the discussion about AI and the future that AI has within this space of FinOps. So I'd like to ask each, what are the things that really excite you about AI, or what's that one big application of AI in FinOps that gets you excited about where you could have a tremendous impact with this technology?
Yeah, for me, it's leveraging AI as an analytical tool. I think it can do things a lot more quickly than most individuals can. And I think that as AI is evolving, because I mean it's growing every day, its use cases are growing every day. We're still kind of figuring out exactly how that plays into the FinOps space. I've seen a lot of individuals leveraging it for chatbots. I'm starting to see more teams use it for analytical purposes. But then now that we have MCP servers, we can use our LLM models to interact directly with tools. So it's just going to be constantly evolving, and hopefully one day we will have kind of a chatbot type feature where I can say, hey, I want you to tell me what are my top 10 cost optimization opportunities for account X, Y, and Z, right? And then it can kind of summarize that data for me. And then I say, okay, great. Well, what are maybe some automations that would be best to optimize those? And then it can give me maybe some recommendations there. And then I can tell it, hey, okay, well, great. We'll go and tackle those optimization methods, right? So that single pane of glass where you can communicate effectively to not just summarize what it is that you're trying to do, but also help you go take action on those things, I think would be really amazing.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm really excited to see what we can use to leverage AI to look at things from the design phase, deployment phase, production phase, provide real insights into real-time data and metrics that are happening in prod, analyze what that architectural footprint looks like, and actually make recommendations on improvements in regards to cost, in addition to everything else. But really having something that's constantly looking at cost and efficiency opportunities to provide back to the development.
It's really taking a lot of the benefits that we've talked about today, from automation, from visibility, all the way through recognition of specific opportunities for downsizing, to actually taking action on our behalf. That's kind of the nirvana state that we're all heading towards with AI.
I would love that, yes. Yeah, I believe so. I certainly believe so.
Yeah, I'd say, and I don't want to say we can fully trust AI, because we've all seen the hallucinations early on. They've gotten better, but I do think that there, at least in the foreseeable future, there's going to be that human element to just ensure that whatever actions that we would like it to take are the correct ones.
Yeah, and that goes back to the trust that you both talked about earlier. Is if you properly built the trust with the teams around SLAs and SLOs and your partnership to make sure that the application is performant, while also maximizing or optimizing for cost responsibility in the organization, I think that's critical as you bring in AI, because that's automation on steroids, effectively.
Really is, yeah. I think as you mentioned, constant human oversight is still going to be present for the next few years until we have full trust, but human oversight to allow it or push okay is still going to be needed.
On this topic of trust, we've talked about the different levels of automation, from visibility to identification, and then ultimately letting automation take actions on behalf of or in lieu of a FinOps team or a development team. And trust is critical in actually doing that successfully in the organization. Kyler, you've actually done this successfully within your organization. Do you mind just talking about how you've done that and some of the results that you're seeing there?
Yeah, absolutely. So as with any large-scale initiative, I was alluding to earlier, communication's very important. So first, we're letting everybody know that, hey, this is an objective that we have that we're looking to tackle. And doing it at scale is very difficult, especially something related to like starting and stopping resources for dev environments. So you definitely want to be a little careful as you're implementing that, because you want to bring the end users along for the ride to make sure that, hey, when they're trying to get on the weekends, for instance, that now their server's down, how do they spin it back up? You want to definitely have like maybe a guide on how they could go about maybe restarting their instance back up. Attacking in phases. We attacked it in multiple phases. So for our first phase, it was basically migrating from our previous start-stop solution to our current start-stop solution. And for our second phase, it was tackling like a lower environment, so like a dev environment that isn't as critical of a nature. And then for our third phase, we moved up to like QA type environments.
Okay, so progressively increasing the trust that you have in the automation, so that you're not just turning it on.
Right.
You're trusting, verifying, and trusting and verifying iteratively. And has the organization seen some results that you're proud of?
Oh yeah, absolutely. One of our business units, we are starting and stopping, hundreds of their servers every weekend, which, like I mentioned, by doing it in a phase approach, really built trust throughout the entire process, because it's like, hey, is this automation doing what it's supposed to be? Okay, great. Now, are we seeing the actual returns that we're expecting to see? Okay, we are. So now, as that progressed, that we were able to tackle that for an entire business unit. Now we can share that story with other business units who are more inclined to adopt that automation because we were successful as well at doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And auto stopping is one of Harness's critical capabilities that we've been developing for years. So hearing from a customer that you've not only implemented it, but also seen the results that you're hoping to see out of it and that are continuing to expand it is absolutely great to hear. So thanks for sharing that story.
No problem.
So with that, thank you everyone. Thank you both for joining me here to talk about winning with automation. And thank you to everyone in the audience who was able to chime in. And best of luck in your ventures as you continue to implement automation in your own FinOps practices. Take care.